This is Julia Child's recipe. We start with a cup and a half of a good quality, unbleached, all-purpose flour. A half cup of a standard cake flour. Give it a little bit of flakiness, while the AP gives it the gluten it needs so that it can be rolled out. And since this is going to be for a pie with some sweetness, we are going to find, if it was just going to be like for a quiche, it would be 1 teaspoon of salt. If it's for something sweet, it's going to be 1/4 teaspoon of salt and 2 tablespoons of sugar. So we're going to 2 tablespoons of sugar, quarter teaspoon of salt. If you use kosher salt, use a little bit more than 1/4 teaspoon because it's flaky. And then we're going to put the food processor top on, and we're going to pulse it 2 or 3 times just to bring everything together. Then we're going to take directly from the refrigerator 2 sticks of unsalted butter. You've already controlled the amount of salt you're putting in by using salt separately. If you use salted butter for pastry, flour, pastry, crust, or cake, then you are not controlling the amount of salt that it has. So always start with unsalted butter. And we're going to take the cold butter and cut it into cubes, trying to handle it as little as possible, which is the goal in the whole process, so that the butter stays cold and by the time you're finished it still has definition from the flour, and that is what puffs up, steams, and creates the flakes in your finished pastry. And everything that you use should be cool, especially on a hot day, which today is not. And your surface should either be neutral or ideally cold, especially on a hot day, so that nothing melts and the temperature of your body can make a difference. Some people are better at making pastries than others just because they can handle pastry. Their hands don't generate as much heat, and so they have a light touch with the process, so everything stays light and fluffy. The other trick to doing pastry crust is letting things rest. After you've made it, you want to plan it so that there's plenty of time. Minimum of 30 minutes, 3 hours is ideal for a crust to rest and the gluten to relax again, so you can have a flaky crust. Now we're going to pulse this until it's the size of peas. Depending on the butter and the texture, 5-6 times, that's right. So that looks good. Give it a little stir. Beware of the blades in the bottom of your food processor. And that looks great. The recipe calls for a half cup ice water, and I usually put in 3/4 of that and then see how it's responding that particular day with humidity and the air and flour. And you're going to pulse once, twice, 3 times. And what we're looking for is the dust on the side of the Cuisinart from the flour to sort of gather together. That will indicate that all the dust is absorbed